Hey guys, what's up? Nick here once again, and today I'm going to be doing my full review on the Twisted Metal television show after watching the entire season 1. And this will be completely spoiler free, so if you haven't seen the show, do not worry, you can watch this entire video and I will not give away anything that has not already been shown in the trailers.
Yo! It's your boy Pizza Boy. Nick told me to slide on in here real quick to remind you guys to smash that like button and subscribe so that you don't miss any future uploads. I hope that was easy enough for you. Yeah, Pizza Boy out.
So I've separated this review into the good and the bad. I don't have like a medium or an ugly, it's just good and bad. And I do have a lot more good to say than I do bad. So I want to start this off by saying, obviously, I'm a huge fan of Twisted Metal. I've been a fan of the series and the games probably since 1999, maybe 98. It was pretty early on in the development of the games that I got into them. I was born in 94, so I was only like maybe 4 or 5 when I played my first Twisted Metal, and the rest is history. Ever since playing the very first one, I fell in love with it, and I wanted to get every single one in the series, and I basically did that. As the years went on and it moved to PS2 and then PS3, you know, the games got better and bigger and more theatrical, but the original PS1 versions had a special place in my heart, and I still come back and play them to this day, and of course make a ton of content on them, and I've been absolutely loving that and kind of reliving my childhood youth, if you will. So you can imagine my excitement when I heard they were making a television show. I wish I could show you guys clips and stuff from it, but because of copyright, I can't even do that. I will show you screenshots and probably just some gameplay of one of the games in the background during my talk here. But that being said, this show, when I first heard about it over 2 years ago now, I thought it was going to be canceled before it launched. I was like, there's no way they're going to make money on a Twisted Metal television show, and let alone it being live action. I thought if they were ever going to do anything with an adaptation of TM into a movie or a show, it'd be animated or full CGI, whatever they do, right? But they did it. They made a live action Twisted Metal show, and I gotta say, it's pretty damn good. I've heard mixed reviews, but I think the overall consensus is at least a 7 out of 10 from most people, which is good. Definitely not bad. So with that, I'm going to get into my good of the show, and again, this is completely spoiler free. The first point I want to make across is that there's actually some really good acting all around throughout the entire series. There is a lot of things, and I'll get more into this in a minute, that do feel a little bit like cheaply made, or you can tell it's low budget. And I kind of knew that going into it. I wasn't expecting, Oscar-worthy performances or Oscar-worthy special effects. I wasn't expecting any of that. And I'll be honest, they don't deliver that here either. But when it comes to the acting itself, just in general, I think they did an amazing job of picking the cast. I think everybody played their parts really well. There wasn't really a specific character or an actor that stood out to me as really bad or cringy in their delivery. However, there was one character, and I'm not going to go into who it is because that'd be a spoiler, but they're one of the cop characters in the show, and they, clear as day, this is their first time acting, and their delivery is pretty bad. But honestly, they're the only ones out of the entire show, and there's a lot of characters throughout the series, so it's pretty astonishing that only one out of so many characters was bad. So yeah, I got to give them a leg up for really good choices on the acting, and everyone did a really good job, and it looked like they had a lot of fun with their role. The amazing set design, and they actually had some really good practical effects thrown in there with real explosions and wrecked cars. And the only reason I know that a lot of them were practical is because we had the director, Michael Jonathan Smith, with us watching it in the Discord. And he's in the Discord as well. And now that the show is out and about, he's able to talk more about it and the behind the scenes because the NDAs are lifted and all that, which is cool. And I absolutely loved hearing some of the behind the scenes talk from him about how they did certain things and where they shot on location and all that good stuff. And yeah, it was cool to see that they legitimately blew up certain vehicles for certain scenes, and you can tell as a viewer, like, that is a real explosion. It's a real vehicle that they actually destroyed. And I love seeing that. I actually have to say they have more practical effects in this series than they do CGI. And I'll get into the CGI stuff later, but yeah, the practical effects were mind-blowingly good. Love to see that. It had a fun plot that is pretty easy to follow, even for newcomers who've never heard of the games, and it pretty much has little plot holes overall. I was expecting to have some issues with the plot, maybe some things that just don't make sense, or they just kind of had to stitch it together really quick to make it make sense by the end, but No, from start to finish, the plot makes sense. It's an understandable plot. It's fun to follow. None of it really felt dry or boring. There was one episode kind of in the middle that felt more of a filler in a way. But even in that filler episode, they still included some things that were like looking into the past of one of the characters to kind of figure out or show the audience where they came from or how they ended up the way they are. And that was interesting, even if the overall episode was kind of more on the boring side. But that being said, yeah, the main plot itself is definitely more than adequate. And I think they did a good job of tying a lot of the Twisted Metal universe into one cohesive story that I pretty much before this show never thought that would actually be possible. The comedy actually hits, at least for me, and it is a very dark comedy. There's a lot of dark jokes in there that I really didn't believe they would get away with. Some of them I legitimately, my jaw hit the floor and I was like, wow, they actually allowed this in a television show. So yeah, you could tell a lot of the jokes were made by the writers of both Zombieland and Deadpool. And some of the humor hits just like they did in Deadpool. I love those movies, and I think if you enjoyed the comedy from those movies, you will enjoy the comedy in this show. It's not for everybody, I'll say that right now. There was definite some people that were in the watch party that had some pretty strong opinions. They never laughed once, or they said that the comedy never hit for them. They maybe chuckled here and there, but that was it. Whereas for me, I legitimately was in tears at least twice throughout the show, and that never happens. I mean, like, I like comedies more than the next guy, but it does take a lot to really make me, like, belly laugh, and I had that happen quite a bit throughout the show, so I have to hand it to the writers for making it fun to watch. Even if it is one of those things where I'm kind of bummed they didn't go the TM Black route of making it more of a horror show, more creepy and unsettling, but more of just like a dark comedy. And I gotta hand it to them for making it at least a dark comedy. If it was straight up like slapstick, silly, dumb comedy, I would have been more upset, to be honest with you. But no, they definitely stuck to the dark comedy routes, and I think that was the best way they could have gone with it. I also feel they had some pretty good character arcs as well, which I was not expecting. They took some one-off characters, and I won't go into specifics because it'd be spoilers, but they took some one-off characters from the Twisted Metal universe and brought them into the show and actually gave them a lot of dialogue and a lot of growth to the point of them becoming some of my favorite characters in the show next to the main characters. So that was really cool to see, and I hope that if we get future seasons, they continue to do that, where they bring one-off characters from one Twisted Metal game and bring them as a main character that stays for the whole season and stuff like that. I would just love to see that, because there are a lot of characters in Twisted Metal that never got much limelight. They never really had a backstory. They never really got the chance to shine. But the overall creativity around the character is like, it's so obvious that this character deserved more of a backstory and more life to it in a way. And they really brought that to the table with some of them here. And on top of that, there are some legitimate sad moments within the show too, like heart-wrenching stuff where some of that they kind of treated it as a joke. Like some people it could be 50-50, right? Like for me, there was a scene, and I'm not going to go into specifics, but they had a music playing by Evanescence in the background, and the song is always like pulled at my heartstrings. It's one of the saddest songs of all time. And they had that song playing with a scene that happened that was really depressing for the main character, and I felt for them. I actually felt really sad. But at the same time, you could tell the director, whoever was running the show in that episode, they were going for more of a comedic tone. They were trying to make fun of the situation, and you could laugh along with it. But yeah, in my opinion, I thought it was more sad than it was funny. But then there was people in the chat that were saying it was hilarious, and they were laughing at it. So I think it worked for both ways. I think you could look at it as a very sad moment or a hilarious moment. Either way, it works. So yeah, they did a really good job at that. That really made you care about these characters and care about certain situations. And yeah, they did an amazing job with the character arches and with some actual touching moments throughout the show. The Easter eggs, by the way, for the games are everywhere, and I was so pleasantly surprised to see that. Again, when I heard they were making a TM show, I truly believed, I'm like, well, there's no way they're gonna care about the fans. They're gonna use the name to sell the show and maybe have a little wacky and kooky, kind of like going from Twisted Metal 2 to Twisted Metal 3, where they kind of have an idea of what Twisted Metal was, but they didn't 100% follow through with it, and it ended up being really cringy and stuff like that. That is what I expected going into the show. However, watching it, they are obvious fans of the games. There are so many Easter eggs and things that the characters say and even show that pinpoint to really one-off situations from the video games where literally you would only know about this or understand the joke if you've played the games as a kid, or if you've gone in the deep dive of research of how the games were made and stuff like that. Like, I won't give it away, but they even have a ton of jokes relating to the lost endings from Twist Metal 1, which, by the way, like, those were not in the game. You'd have to do research on your own or play the extra Twisted edition of Twist Metal Head-On to find those lost endings and thus understand the joke. So the fact that they went the extra mile like that to add little Easter eggs here and there in almost every episode, and that's not even just including jokes and things the characters say. I mean, there's literal gags and stuff in the show that are Easter eggs to the games, as well as there's vehicles you can see in the background of some shots where, like, oh, I know that character, I know that car. Or there's even actual characters in the background of scenes where, like, I know that character that had been in the game. I've played that character before, and yeah, that kind of stuff was amazing. I mean, the entire time I'm watching this show, I felt like Leonardo DiCaprio in that meme where he's like jumping off of the chair and pointing at the screen. It was that funny and that amazing, and just, I felt so giddy watching it and seeing all these Easter eggs come to life on a television show, and just feeling like I am part of the club. And speaking of that, they also did bring a ton of characters into the show that I never would have expected to be there. Two of them in particular, which were shown in the trailer, so it's not really a spoiler, is Pizza Boy and Drag Queen from Twist Metal 4. Like, can you imagine? They took these two one-off characters, and especially Drag Queen, which we never would have thought they would bring back, because at the time, you know, the time of the 90s, when that was a character in the game, it was meant as a joke and in poor taste, and it was really kind of cringy going back to it nowadays. So the fact that they brought that into the show was amazing to see. And same with Pizza Boy being in the show is just hilarious to me. He's my favorite character in the series. I think everyone knows that now. And it was so awesome seeing a live adaptation of him. And there's also other ones, by the way. I won't get into it, but yeah, there's other characters that I never would have expected to see in this show make an appearance and actually have lines of dialogue and everything. So yeah, for that alone was an amazing, like, attention to detail, and it proves they have played every game in the series. They're not just looking at TM2 or Black because those are the most popular. They took inspiration from literally every single title. And now moving into the individual main characters. Again, these aren't spoilers because these are all characters that have been portrayed in the trailers and we kind of knew going into it who they were going to be. So Agent Stone as the main villain, played by Thomas Hayden Church. Amazing casting decision. I always loved him. He has a so distinct voice and just a presence that's just intimidating. He plays a perfect villain, and he did an outstanding job here. And watching some interviews with him as well, it's kind of funny to know that he was never a fan of the games. He never played the games himself, and he didn't really do any research on the games either, even after getting the part. He kind of just went into it, read the script, and went off on it, and he played a perfect villain for the show. He played a perfect Agent Stone, and they threw in a lot of Easter eggs from Twist Metal Black in there as well. I won't get into that, of course, but it's cool to see that they knew the source material pretty well with his character. And yeah, he is a horrifying villain. I also felt John Doe, Anthony Mackie, as the main protagonist. I think he did a really amazing job, and I think he had a lot of fun with this role too. He even said in some of the interviews, and I know, you know, he's marketing the show, so he might be lying, but I do kind of believe him, that he said he had the most fun on this set that he's ever had on any set that he's been on, and that's including like the Marvel universe. So the fact that they got a really big name like him in the show is really cool to see. And yeah, I think he did a really good job. I will say, in the first episode, I was kind of put off by him a little bit. He kind of felt forced, a little cringy even at times. And it wasn't the writing's fault. It was his delivery. It was the way he was acting just felt a little fakey. And I wasn't really following his character at first. It just seemed a little too slapstick, a little too out there. But then as episode 2 rolled around, I really started to fall more into his, I think he fell more into his character himself, and I think he became more of a relatable character and just more down to earth, and I really ended up sympathizing for him, and I ended up liking him a lot more. And that is the same for every episode from that point on. I mean, he just got better and better and better, and you cared more about him as a character. And yeah, I think Anthony Mackie overall did a really solid job as John Doe. And then his sidekick, Quiet, in the show, she is basically the second main character, played by Stephanie Baritres. I always say her name wrong, But she also, I think, did an amazing job here. I've always liked her in Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and I would love to see her in more stuff in the future, and I liked her character a lot. She had a lot of growth throughout the season, a lot of character arc there, and it was cool to see their relationship grow as a whole as well. The one thing I will say, though, in terms of what she could work on for a future season is her physical acting is a little much to be desired. There was a certain scene, and I won't go into specifics because it will be a spoiler, but she's killing a guy with a pistol whip. So she's hitting this person in the head with a gun, and it's a very brutal scene. You know, it's very emotional. There's a reason for that. But the one thing that I just couldn't get out of my mind is that when it kept cutting back to her face and, you know, her action, she's barely moving her arm to hit this person in the head. And it's like the amount of blood that was spraying on her and the noises they used, you know, it's supposed to be a brutal kill. And it just, I didn't feel that from her actual physical acting in that scene. And there was a couple other fight scenes and stuff where I just felt she didn't seem totally in her element. And I think that it comes from she's more of a comedy actor. You know, she's just more of a normal, regular actor, not a physical actor. And I don't believe they had many stunt doubles in this show. I think a lot of the actors did their own stunts, which is really cool. So, yeah, I think that could be something she could work on in the future. I think she could be a really good action star. It's just clearly in this show there were some scenes where she could have done a little bit better in that regard. Will Arnett as Sweet Tooth's voice, though, absolutely a perfect choice. I think he did an amazing job as Sweet Tooth. I loved his dialogue. I think the writing was really good. At first, when I saw the trailers, you know, and we saw that scene in the casino when they released that, I was a little cringed. I was a little like, oh no, what have they done to Sweet Tooth? What is this? Why is he so weird? But they fixed that. I mean, that was literally just one episode where he acted like that, and the rest of the show, he is amazing. And yes, it's kind of a spoiler, but Sweet Tooth is in multiple episodes. Don't worry, he's not in just one. He comes back multiple times throughout the show, and he is the best part of the show, in my opinion, next to another character, which I'll get to in a minute. But yeah, Sweet Tooth did an amazing job, both by Will Arnett and also Samoa Joe. We cannot talk about Sweet Tooth without saying Samoa. Dude did a perfect interpretation of him. He looks amazing. He's got that build. He is intimidating, horrifying, if you will. But his physical acting was absolutely perfect. I think he embodied and encapsulated the perfect essence of what Sweet Tooth is just an unhinged, insane serial killer. He is crazy, he is wild, and he is unhinged, and he could snap at you at any moment, and you'd never know. And I liked that portrayal of him coming from Will Arnett as well with his voice. You know, he's got that gravelly, unique voice. And there's times when you really sympathize for Sweet Tooth, and you felt like, oh, is he being my friend right now? Like, he actually seems like a nice guy that you could trust. And then in a moment's notice, he snaps a finger and he kills you. So yeah, absolutely perfect job by Joe and Will together. I think that was a really cool, unique idea to do it that way, and not just have Joe Samoa do the voice as well as the physical acting. And obviously, I don't think Will Arnett would have fit playing the body of Sweet Tooth. But yeah, really cool overall. I like the way they did that. Mike Mitchell as Stu, I think, is incredibly underrated. I've never heard this actor before. I think he's been in a few things before this show, but he deserves more recognition. I think he did an amazing job. And this is an example of a character that's a one-off, because it's Stu and Mike from Hammerhead and TM2. And he is a one-off character. He's never come back into the series since that game. But they made him almost a main character. I'm not going to go into spoiler specifics, but I absolutely loved his portrayal in this show. I think he was incredibly funny, and he also became one of the characters you felt for, like you actually cared about and you wanted to succeed. And he just was a fun character to watch. So definitely hope we get a Stu for season 2. And without spoilers, they 100% left us hanging with a massive cliffhanger at the end, showing that they want a season 2 to happen. So please, let's make that happen. The only way that's going to happen is if Peacock gets the numbers to show that people are interested. So please make a Peacock account. I don't know if they have free trials at the moment. Sadly, I think the cheapest plan is like $5 or $6. Please pay the $5 or $6. Go watch the show, have a blast, and show them support that we want a season 2. And hopefully by the time season 2 comes out, maybe they'll have some free trials and shit by then. And who knows, maybe it'll be on other platforms and all that stuff as well. But yeah, we want a season 2. Help make that happen. And let's move into the bad. Now, even though I've pretty much proclaimed that I really enjoyed the series, I had a lot of fun with it, there was definitely some things that stuck out to me that I feel I need to put in this review, and I think that need to be considered, and I think a lot of people also would agree with me with these critiques if they have seen the show. The first thing in my bad list is that this is kind of what everybody expected, and sadly what did happen. There was just not enough car combat scenes. Now, don't get me wrong, the few that we got were pretty damn cool. I will say that there was a lot of practical effects, like I said before. I loved some of the scenes that we got with car combat, but they just were not enough. There wasn't enough of it. For a game series that literally 24/7 took place inside of vehicles fighting each other, it is a very interesting take for a live action to not really take place inside of the cars. I gotta admit, it's about 90% on foot. It's a lot, 90% character development, talking, fighting in that sense. There was even some like actual hand-to-hand combat in the show that I did not expect. You know, I expected every time there was someone gonna be in a fight or something, they'd be like, all right, let's take this to the cars. And they would go fight in the vehicles, but that never happened. There was, though, a couple scenes, I won't go into spoilers, of course, but there was a couple scenes where there was car combat and they were really well done, well directed, very cool stuff. But it just, in the end, it left me feeling like I wanted more. And I think that's kind of what they're leading season 2 up to be, is more car combat. So if they can get a bigger budget for a season 2 with a lot of hype around it, I think car combat will be more of a center focus. And I am really excited to see that. Some characters definitely had plot armor to the point of being distracting. And that is something I've seen in a lot of TV shows, a lot of movies. So I'm going to be a little bit less critical about this one, but there was some scenes for sure where the main character should have died. Like, again, I won't go into specifics, but yeah, just imagine, like, this isn't an actual scene, I'm making it up, but hypothetically, imagine like the main character, John Doe, he's just driving down the street and his car explodes. And then the scene, it kind of fades to black. It comes back and he's just laying on the ground. He's a little scorched up, but he's fine. He's like, oh man, my car. Just imagine that, right? That's kind of what they do, and they don't even treat it like it's a silly moment or a comedy aspect. It's just, hey, this happened, you better believe it, and they're fine. So there was a lot of scenes like that where it just was like, yeah, he'd be dead, or he would have broken bones, stuff like that, which does take me out of it, because the show, it definitely leans more on the serious. It's got a lot of comedy in it, of course, but the actual universe they created seems to be more grounded in reality. It doesn't seem to be very supernatural, and I'll get to that in a minute. It seems more grounded in reality, so when they do stuff like that, where the characters are like cartoon characters, it's like, come on. I wish they had a bit more supernatural elements, and this is kind of banking off what I was just talking about, is that the show itself seems more grounded in reality. I wish there would have been more supernatural stuff, and they could have included that into the special weapons for the vehicles. Obviously, there's still some things that are hyper-realistic in the show, and I won't get into specifics. And even in the car combat scenes, there's some things that are hyper-realistic that made it more fun to watch. But I really hope in Season 2 they really dive into that supernatural element, because we all know TM has always had that stuff. There's been ghosts in Twisted Metal, and, ghost missiles and Twister's tornado. There's so many things in Twisted Metal that are supernatural, where it's like, you gotta jump into that. I mean, it might look cheesy in live action, but if you just take it seriously and you just go full board into it, you don't half-ass it, it can work. So I really hope that in the next season, we do get more supernatural elements. Neve Campbell, I think she's a great actress. I think she really played her part well. I think she had fun on set as well. I didn't feel like she was bored or really like giving bad line delivery. Nothing of the sort. But I will say that even though she was a great asset to the show, I felt that her character Raven was very underutilized, or at least not utilized as well as it could have been. I think it was cool bringing her character into the show. I think she had a good place. Her character literally started the main plot of the entire season, and yada, yada, yada. I won't go into specifics, of course, but I do feel that she wasn't really shown as much as she should have. There should have been some scenes maybe during the season where it went back to her and explained more of like who she is and what she's doing. And again, this might all come into Season 2. I have no idea. But there was a couple situations where I was like, I don't know what her game plan is. I don't know who she is. Like, what is her end goal? What is this all about? And they kind of get into that at the very end. But again, it's just, there was some things where I felt they could have been a little bit more with her character to make her maybe more threatening or something. I don't know. Just something could have been done a little more. And lastly, this is a big one too, with kind of banking off not enough car combat scenes. It's just, the budget definitely shows at times with some of the CGI effects and of course the lack of car combat in general. The CGI effects are just bad. I gotta say that straight out. I think a lot of people would agree with me on that. The fact that 90% of the effects are practical make it amazing, and I can easily forgive the bad CGI. But when the CGI kicks in, it is eye-wateringly terrible. There's a couple scenes where the cars clearly turn into CGI vehicles, and it's just plain as day, like the difference when it switches from practical to CGI. It looks terrible. And then there's even some scenes where like there's some chopped off arms and limbs and heads, and the blood effects are so like mid 2000s blood effects. I mean, I could easily do that in After Effects in 5 minutes. It's so bad. So that does kind of take you out of it a little bit. It's pretty distracting. It's like, ugh, like what is that? Why, they could have went in the back in the editing room and changed it up a little bit. So yeah, the CGI could have been better. But again, I think that all comes down to the budget. This obviously was a low budget show, and I understand that, and I give them a pass. And I do think that if we get a season 2, that will have a lot bigger budget, and I hope that with Peacock they can get the help they need to make a bigger, grander season. And I think they need that for more car combat, because I understand if you're gonna make car combat scenes in this show in live action, the only way it's gonna work is having decent CGI. I mean, there's only so much you can do practically with that kind of stuff without making it just like a destruction derby event. And especially if they include special weapons like I want in the future, they're gonna need to use some type of CGI, and I think they'll just have to have that in the budget. And CGI is very expensive these days, so that's what I hope anyway. But that is pretty much it of my overall thoughts of the television show in season 1. I liked it. I really did. I had a really fun time with it. I don't really have any other complaints other than the points I just made. So yeah, if I was to give it a ranking out of 10, for me, I would give it a solid 8 out of 10. The 2 points I'm docking from it literally are just some of the scenes were not enough with car combat for me. The CGI was pretty shoddy, and I wish that there was more supernatural elements, like the major 3 points that I wanted to give across for season 2 to make it better. But yeah, otherwise, the rest of it was a hell of a thrill ride. I'm more than excited to jump back into it and rewatch the entire season again with my wife, because she has not seen it. But yeah, I hope this review helped in some way, shape, or form. Maybe it persuaded you to get a Peacock account to go watch the show yourself, because maybe you were kind of worried it was going to suck. But that being said, let me know your thoughts on the show in the comment section below, and please, please, please make them spoiler free. I will delete comments if they have deliberate spoilers in them to save people from getting spoiled from the show as well. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you like, share, support as always, subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And hopefully see you in the next one. Peace out. Thank you guys so much for making it to the end of the video. Before we head out, I want to give a huge special thank you to our channel members. These are amazing people who are wanting to support the channel and the content here. And if you want to do the same, you can click the little join button underneath every single new upload. And in becoming a channel member not only supports me and the channel, but also gives you a ton of perks in doing so, including early access to new content and being a part of exclusive polls and information that other people would not be able to access. So, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you again so much for the love and support, and we'll hopefully see you in the next one. Peace out.